Right. So, like, oh, I don't really know. I've never been invited to something like this, but I think I'll just give it a go, you know. Imagine my friends in the background or something and just like imagine I'm telling them the story. But really, it started when I was like working and I worked in a shop. I was stocking shelves. I worked in a cosmetics shop, which is funny because I don't use like nearly any cosmetics. Like, all I'm using right now is sun cream against the sun because it's sunny outside. But anyways, I happen to know quite a lot about the products on display, and frankly, I've always had a kind of obsession with reading, and not the clever stuff. What I'm talking about now is like the labels and the packaging and stuff like that. Like when I eat my cereal, I'm always sitting there and reading like every single letter, and I'm not just talking about like the kind of like writing around like how the cereal's healthy and stuff like that, like the advertisement. But I'm also reading like the ingredients and like the things that people never read, like even the barcode numbers and stuff like that. And because of this obsession with reading, like I don't know what it is, it's like I need to cover, like with my eyes, I need to like cover the whole page or something like that. It's almost like I need to earn a sense of completion or something. Like when I like get through like even reading like a magazine, I love to read like the disclaimers at the bottom, like things like people would never read ultimately. Funny thing is though, is that because I read everything like that, I know like all the sell by dates of all the products we've got in the fridge at home at the moment, so nothing's ever going out of date because I know exactly when it's going off, because I've already like when I unloaded the shopping I already read it all. But what this has kind of led to is kind of like a weird sort of photographic memory, because what I've done is I've learned to like differentiate between really, really sort of almost meaningless information. So I can like remember, because I read so many barcodes, I can like remember how like lots of numbers are strung together. And basically they ended up hiring me in cryptography and cryptology because I could basically like smash all the passwords just with my memory. Like those really long sort of auto-generated passwords, like I can remember those. So if I like flash a glance on your laptop when you're in the cafe, like generating a password, that's like bad news for you, innit? Because I can remember the whole thing. Don't get me even started on like more intelligible strings of information, like that sort of thing I can really get down, like if you show me a few pages of a novel, if I actually scan that page with my own two eyes, I can remember the whole story. So yeah, that has led me into like being interested in quite a few different like areas of human endeavour, like from literature to cryptography and like security. So, it's kind of a special skill, I understand that, but I wasn't like a savant or anything. I wasn't born with any sort of like special ability or anything. It's just like, if I was born with something, it was this obsession with just like scanning any surface that has any sort of text or numerals on it. I just had to like get all over that. So I was working in this shop and I had all these like perfumes. There was lots for me to like pass over. And I loved it when there were like days when the shop was really empty and I had lots of time to like read all the packaging and all the different perfumes and like cosmetics and stuff. But what that really led to is that again, I was incredibly good at my job, because whenever somebody came in and they were like, excuse me, I have got like this really rare allergy and I can't have, any cosmetics with this chemical in it, I was like, that's all right. I know exactly which products in this department don't have that chemical in it. And so I could like take them around and it would be no problem or whatsoever. And so that's how like I got through my years like working in this perfume shop, which essentially like people working there were usually really bored because they would just like if there were no customers in the actual shop, like my colleagues would just start like going on the phones and stuff like that. But I find like the information that's on social media and stuff like that is far too intelligible, so it doesn't pose enough of a challenge for me really to pass through, because it's too on the nose, like the statements on Twitter and stuff like that. Well, people are putting loads of effort into making those like 140 character statements like really intelligible, and so there's no challenge for me there's no like puzzle for me to unpack really. So I prefer to like look in the library of the cosmetics shop, and I like looking at the back of the bottles and finding meaning, almost like looking at like people who look at like those patterns in carpets and curtains and things like that, like floral or abstract patterns, and they start seeing faces in them. Well, the same thing would happen to me when I started looking at like these barcodes and things like that on the back of bottles, and even when I was looking at these sort of like really complicated chemical compounds on the backs of bottles in the ingredients list, like I started to recognise those things as sort of characters. And it was really endearing, really, because I started to get to know these things. And bearing in mind, I've got like no background in chemistry whatsoever. So when I was reading on the backs of these things, I get to know these like different characters, these different alcohols and things like that. And they would like form an image in my mind, because I was like, oh, I remember you from that previous bottle. And then I'll start to like form associations, for example, in the consistency of the gel in that bottle, things like that. And I would start to feel like, oh, you're the kind of chemical who really likes viscosity, like you're always around like viscous things, or you're the kind of chemical that really likes the kind of creamy things, creamy zones. And I'll generate all these narratives. And so you had these people coming into the department store, and I would be there like ready to, because you know, like I would put the bottle down and resume my normal job. So they would ask me questions about the products, and I would know all these things about those products. But I was always adamant that like, even though I'm employed at this establishment, my job, I don't conceive of it as my role to really push this product on the customers. So I'm always truthful. I'll always say my honest opinion about the products. And I'll obviously, you know, if there are any details about allergies and things like that, I'll be there for you as well. But the things the customers started to really like is like the stories I'd start to relate about the different chemicals and the journeys they'd make across different products. So then their eyes would start to open that, no, this is not just a perfume store, this is a library. And every time I take off like a little ointment or like a cream or like whatever from the shelf, I can tell you a whole like, not just a story of the adventures of this particular bottle, but of its genealogy, which is, you know, visible on the ingredients list, and how it's connected to the saga of this little perfume bottle over here. And that's how this whole thing sort of blew over, and I started getting invited to do talks and stuff like that, and having to imagine my friends in the audience to be able to cope, because it's so hard, really, you know, not to really be an expert in any of these things, but to just be an expert in reading those really obtuse things on the backs of bottles. That's me. And I've settled for that, and I'm happy with that.